So it is refresh time for the Xiaomi Mi Notebook Air 13 line of notebooks. We don't get a new design, we get the same design from last year. However, they did add a fingerprint reader that's incorporated in the touchpad. So the CPU has changed and so has the GPU. We now have Core i5-7-2000U or the i7-7500U. And the GPU is the Nvidia MX150. The SSD is also faster. So is this one here worth upgrading to from the 2016 model? And does it still have that issue with getting just far too hot to the touch? Just like the first generation, it shares the same design. So there are no logos on the lid, and the lid itself has no real flex in it. It's quite firm. Pushing down hard, I don't believe it's going to bend in with your notebooks and things when you put it in a bag, and the screen will certainly not be pressing up against the keyboard. So on the left there's a 3.5mm headphone out. Now this has very clear audio and it's quite loud. It's not bad. The quality, I have no complaints with it whatsoever. A USB 3 port and then HDMI 1.4 out. So it's not HDMI 2 sadly, so it only supports 4K at 30 Hz. And on the right side, we have a Type-C port. So this is USB 3.1 Gen 2 spec. So it's data, charging, video out, all at the same time. So you can use a hub like this I have. So you can get display out up to 2 external monitors, 3 monitors in total if you count the laptop's own monitor. And this little tiny dot here is a status LED. So that's red when charging, green once fully charged. And the USB 3 port, like the one on the left, will power external hard drives and runs at full USB 3 speeds. Our keyboard is the same as the 2016 model, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's a very decent keyboard. It's got about 1.26mm of key travel. Very nice keys. They're backlit. You only have on or off. Now after 13 seconds, the backlight on those keys will turn off automatically. Now the power button is in a bit of an awkward location right here on the upper right hand side, so next to the delete button. But the good thing about it is it has more resistance than the other buttons, so it's not so easy to accidentally tap and put the laptop into sleep mode. You can, of course, via the Windows settings, set the power button to do nothing in case you do end up tapping it. Keyboard flex is at a minimum. Pressing down quite hard there, it is firm. Same goes for the palm rest, that you can press down quite hard on there. So a very rigid design. The screen hinge is quite tight at the moment, but I did notice that on my 2016 model, at least my 12.5-inch version, that the hinge will loosen up a little bit after a year's use, but it's still fine. And you can see there, that's the maximum angle that the notebook will recline the screen, which makes it fine to use on your lap. So our touchpad is rather large, as you can see. It's not MacBook large, neither is it MacBook quality, but it's a very decent Synaptics touchpad, and the performance and accuracy of it with finer movements is really quite decent. Now you've got all those Windows 10 gestures on here because it is a precision touchpad. Now you're able to control and disable gestures you don't want on there. The surface of it is very smooth, it's almost like glass, and to me it feels similar to the Surface Book touchpad that I remember using a while back when that first came out. So on the rear we've got these 5 hard rubber feet that hold it up only a slight amount just to allow the air to come in through the vent on the bottom. But bear in mind that if you're going to be using this laptop on your lap, as you would of course a laptop, that you will block this vent and it will start to heat up a little bit more than normal, so it pays to use it on a tabletop if you can. So we've got 2 downwards firing AKG speakers. Now if you want to have a look at the internals of this, you want to see the cooling solution they have, please check out my unboxing video of that. There should be a card popping up now. I open this up, I show you the SSD slots and also the 2 fans they have inside and the cooling tube and fin there to keep everything cool. So let's have a listen to those downwards firing speakers now. So they reach about 88 decibels max, and they do have some bass, some mids, overall very decent sounding laptop speakers. Sample now from that 2 megapixel front facing webcam that we've got just above the screen. Now it's 2 megapixels, 30 frames per second, and you can see 720p resolution too. The quality is decent, and so is the audio. Now you'll hear some echo. That echo is coming from my room here, not the microphones themselves. So that dual array microphone above the webcam does a really good job picking up sound, and overall I'm very happy with the camera quality here. So the screen used is a 1080p. It's fully laminated, and that means there's no gap or anything on the glass that covers that IPS panel. Now, my unit doesn't have any IPS bleed or the glow you get around the corners, the edges, which is really good. Perhaps I struck it lucky with this particular batch of screens that I got. I think it's even better than my 2016 model. So the maximum screen brightness, the output of this Sharp SHP1447 panel is around 350 lux, which isn't too bad, but being a glass-coated panel, it is quite reflective. Now the brightness, I'll just show you, at the moment it's 100%. It dims down to 0%, which is very dim. It's not too bad, but you see now a lot of pulse width modulation flicker on the screen. Now this, I can only see it on camera, this is happening. Looking at it in person, it's not there at all. And that flicker's there until around about 20-30%, it disappears completely. Although there are a few lines you can see there. At 75, it's gone. Go back to 100%. Just show you a couple of sample images of how nice and vibrant this screen really does look. So you can see here that those blacks around the edges. I've got the lighting turned down here. You can't see any screen bleed at all where the glass meets up with those bezels, which is great news there. And very decent screen. I really do like it. It is a step up from the 12.5 inches screen, which I found to be quite a good screen as well, but this one's just slightly better. So a very decent panel that they have used. Now 4K videos, this is an HEVC codec file. Of course, the i5 62000U supports VP9 and this codec, so there's no problems playing this. You can see there that is very smooth, and skipping ahead as well works fine. I mean, these videos play on the Apollo Lake series of very low-end chipsets there, so no problems at all with the i5, of course, playing your 4K video files. So we've got 8 GB of RAM and the i5 7200U, this model. Now there is another model that has the i7 7500U, which will be faster, of course, but I'm not too sure how much faster. I honestly don't believe it's going to be worth paying the extra for it, really, because as I'll show you later on, this system does run into thermal throttling, and with that faster processor, it's going to happen a lot sooner. So Windows will come, if you get this directly from China, in Chinese, of course, and you can go ahead and install it in English, and you also can activate Windows. So at the moment, the version you need to install is Windows 10 Home, and then get Windows to activate it via the troubleshooting menu if you run into problems. But it should detect a digital license and then activate Windows. So you don't have to worry about CD keys or anything like that, buying a new copy of Windows, as long as you install Windows 10 Home. So make sure you do that. Under the device manager, a few things of interest here. So the fingerprint reader is the ELAN version, and as you'll see shortly, it works really well. And the Samsung drive on there, NVMe drive, PCI x4, so it's very quick, and I'll show you the speeds of that in a second when I run through a few benchmarks. And the dual band wireless AC 8265, a very good chipset. This runs a 2x2 antenna setup, so range and speeds are really some of the best you will see. Just to also point out that the RAM is only running 1 DIMM, but it's soldered to the motherboard, so you cannot upgrade this RAM. If you want 16 gigabytes, you're out of luck at the moment unless Xiaomi decide to release a 16 gigabyte model. You'll notice too that down here where it says slots used, it's only 1, so that also means that it's only running in single channel and not taking advantage of extra bandwidth it could have if running in dual channel, which is a bit of a shame to see. The speed there is 2133 megahertz, which is the fastest that it supports. At least that's one positive here. So I'm not too sure why they didn't set it as dual channel. It could be to save on battery why they didn't do this. So the fingerprint reader that's incorporated into the touchpad works really well. All you need to do, of course, is just wake it first, place your finger, and it unlocks and goes straight into Windows. It's super quick, as you can see. So on to benchmarks. I know a lot of you are asking in the comments of my previous videos on this particular new 2017 model, asking me just how much faster is it? Well, on the CPU, it turns out to be around about approximately 14% faster, judging by the Geekbench 4 score here, you can see. So a nice bump in performance. And there is the OpenCL score, which is also a lot better. Now, this got almost 40,000. On the 2016 model, it got 27,000. So quite an increase there on OpenCL. And the wireless performance is very good. Really good range, speeds. Just maximize that for you so you can see that. Now that's maxing out my fiber line here, which is really good. It's got that 2x2 antenna setup as mentioned when I showed you the device manager, so that's why it works so well there. So the Firestrike score here, nothing amazing of course. This is not a gaming laptop. This does not have a 1080 in it, so a very poor score really when you compare that to gaming desktops. Skydiver score, just over 8,000. This is faster than the 2016 model. And Cinebench R15. Now, judging by the performance here of the OpenGL score, it turns out to be almost 30% faster than the 940MX that we find in the 2016 model. So the MX150 is a nice bump in performance there. Very good increase. 30%, I'll take that, thanks. It's good. Pass mark as well, slightly higher here. Now, the score is being boosted, of course, by the faster SSD. And SSD speeds, really good. It's blazing fast. There's no bottlenecks when it comes to installing applications, loading, for example, Photoshop, Premiere Pro. It's very quick because of these read speeds. They are excellent. Write speeds aren't the fastest because it's not a Samsung 960 Pro. This is the slower version. This is like the 960 Evo SSD it's got on there, but PCIe times 4, it's very quick, and I really am impressed with the speeds of this drive. So editing applications such as Adobe Photoshop, just running right there, runs perfectly fine on this. I'm not going to go into any detail here showing you edits because it works just like any other Core i5 laptop that you find out there. Premiere Pro, this is running a edit here that I'm currently editing a 4K video. And the timeline is not quite real time as you can see, but it does a pretty good job at catching up. So the preset I'm going to use is the H.264 format and the YouTube one there. So that's 4K output. I've set it now to just have 1 minute. So the encoding is just finishing up now, and you can see here it's almost about 7 minutes it's going to take. Once it reaches 100%, Adobe always seems to take an extra few seconds before it's fully encoded. And there we go. So just under 7 minutes to encode there a 1 minute 4K clip. So what about battery life? Now I've conducted a very simple test here, which is just to use the notebook in Edge and Chrome with the wireless on, but the screen brightness was set to 25%, which I find to be ideal when you're indoors. It's still bright enough. And here you can see I'm getting approximately 7.5 hours, which isn't too bad. Now, it's not the fastest. You see later on after 4 hours and 25 minutes, which is, by then I had to actually head to bed, so I couldn't keep using it. But it's looking like it is definitely going to get that full runtime of about 7.5 hours. Now, this is Edge and Chrome. Mostly Edge use. I was in YouTube and listening to music too, and doing a little bit of multitasking, so light work. Now, that kind of figure I find is ideal, but if you multitask and do some heavy multitasking, then the battery runtime will go right down to about 5 hours. When you start to gaming is only about 2 hours, 30 minutes to 3 hours, which is about normal because once you start using that dedicated Nvidia GPU, it really does chew through the battery. Charge times are another positive. It will charge up to 37 watts, which is brilliant. And you can see here the full charge time it's giving me is 1 hour and 4 minutes. Now, when I fully charged it up, what happened is it took a bit longer because the last 10% of the battery, like any device, starts to really charge at a lot slower rate. So it went up to just over 1 hour and 30 minutes, about 1 hour and 39 minutes in total to fully charge this when powered on. Is absolutely brilliant. It's super quick to charge. And if you turn it off and charge it, then you're probably looking at about 1 hour and 25 minutes or so to fully charge the 39 watt-hour battery, which is just great. So a AAA title like Battlefield 1 is playable on this hardware. Now, every single game that I have tested have all been playable. You just need to lower the settings. So right now this is running 720p, and I have set it to low settings. And lower end games, for example, like League of Legends, Dota 2, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, these will all run in 1080p. You just need to tweak the settings a little bit, but very playable. You can get over 100 frames per second on those games there. And as mentioned, if you want to see more gaming, then please check out my gaming review. So when it comes to the temperatures, internal temps are fine. I mean, it gets up to 82 degrees. I've not seen the CPU go over this, but it will thermal throttle. So that's throttling it down. So it will hit almost 3 gigahertz turbo, 3.5, and then it will throttle down to 2.8, as you can see here. This is in Intel's Extreme Tuning utility. Now, if I jump into HW Info, it would also report the same, that it didn't actually go past 81 degrees on the CPU, which, I mean, that's fine. It is getting hot, yes. And then the GPU tops out, as you'll see down here, at 75 degrees. Again, I've not seen it go over this. So internal temperatures are fine. However, it is getting extremely hot to the touch, just around this area here. That's where the fans actually vent out. They vent out the top here. So if you were to run this with the lid closed, connected up to, say, an external monitor, it's going to really cook itself, as you'll see. So temperatures around this area, they get up to, I've seen it get as high as 51, 52 degrees Celsius. At the moment, it's around 48. And the palm rest also getting up to 38 degrees, means it's warm to the touch. But this area, it just gets far too hot for my liking. It really is scorching hot after a good gaming session. So you want to use a laptop cooler or prop up the whole notebook itself. So the fan running at 100% is definitely audible. It's not the most annoying fan I've heard. If you see here, it's actually maxing out at 55 decibels is the highest I've seen it get. Now when the laptop is idle, the fan just turns off completely, so it's completely silent. And when it does come on the lower levels, you can hardly hear it. So the fan is only slightly annoying once it's actually gaming and getting hot, and then you will hear it. So let's have a listen to that fan. So end of the day, this is still a fantastic laptop that only really has one con as far as I see it, that the heat. If you intend to game on this, you're going to have to invest in one of those laptop coolers or prop it up or do something to try and keep it a little bit cooler, because the housing of it getting up to 51, 52 degrees Celsius just above the keyboard there is unacceptable. It is scorching hot to the touch. So if you wanted to use this on your lap, or even though the underside of it doesn't quite get that hot, you're going to block the fans to start with, and it will get up to about 47 degrees on the underside, and it's just uncomfortable. That's far too hot. It means you need to use it on a desk. So that is really the only con. Apart from that, the build quality is fantastic. The keyboard's great to type on. It's backlit. The touchpad is good. Fingerprint unlocking works flawlessly. It gets into Windows super quick. It literally only takes seconds. So it's much faster than typing in your password, and it adds another level of security there. Webcam, okay, not brilliant. Charging times are just fantastic. I love how fast it is. It really does charge so quickly. If you turn it off, you plug it in. When you're on 0, you come back an hour and a half later and you have yourself a fully charged laptop ready to go for about 7.5 hours of just internet use. Now, that isn't the best battery life, but I feel it has improved slightly over the earlier models, which you'd get mixed kind of use, the same use, about 6.5. It has improved a little bit there, but of course gaming, it's only going to last for 2.5 hours. You can't expect much there. So should the 2016 owners upgrade to this new model? It all depends. Are you happy with your Mi Notebook 2016? If you are and you want that extra power and you need that extra power, sure, go for it. Spend the extra 200 versus the older model, and I do feel it's worth the extra cash there. But if you're someone that doesn't need the most powerful machine, you're after something with at least i-Core i5 power and a dedicated GPU, then the 2016 model is fantastic value for money, selling for around $689. You get the exact same machine, Just a little slower, and it doesn't have the fingerprint reader, but it still has that super quick fast charging. In an hour and a half, you fully charge the battery. And of course, light and portable, excellent build. Great notebook here. So if you've got any questions, please let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this review. Hope to catch you back in the channel soon.